So as it's coming up to Halloween, I thought I'd tell a strange story, a strange experience that happened to me, and sort of let you make your own mind up about what this could possibly have been. I'd be interested to hear if anyone else has had a similar experience. So, going back to 2001, I was living at home with my mum and dad still, and I'd got a part-time job working at Curry's, which was brilliant because the great thing about working at Curry's and having that job was I could unbox new things and try them before you bought them, and try all the different things to compare with stuff, which was what I was interested in. Anything electrical obviously interested me. So the PlayStation had been released the year before in 2000, PS2 I think, and then by the sort of following year, 2001, you could get lots of accessories to match it. And one of these accessories we got in was a active speaker system, 2 satellite speakers and a subwoofer. And the subwoofer contained the amp and everything, and the 2 satellite speakers were just like these bookshelf speakers, a small speaker with a cable you plugged in the back. We'd tried this system and it sounded amazing. It sounded really good. For value for money, it was better than some of the computer speakers you had. So I bought a set as well as so did a number of other people, a number of other members of staff. We bought them for the plug into the computer. Back then, the computer had its own piece of furniture. It was all hidden away, so it lived in the dining room at home. Dining room was a bit of a through room, and the front room was at the other end of the house. So people were in and out of the dining room all the time. And the computer lived in its own piece of furniture at the back of the room. It had a monitor that stayed out, but had a shelf that went over it like that with all the CD-ROMs and everything in. And the computer lived in a cupboard, and then you had a desk with the keyboard that slid out. So that was the main PC. We didn't have individual computers then. We basically just used the house computer, if you like, the main family PC. So this speaker system went with that perfectly. The 2 satellite speakers went on the top of the shelf, subwoofer went down the bottom, and it made the sound on the computer brilliant. Very happy with it. Had it for, I don't know, a month or so. Then all of a sudden, one summer evening, I remember it being a summer evening, my mother shouted out and said, "Oh, if you left something on, I can hear some music playing through your speakers. Have you turned the computer on?" So I thought, well, I'm sure I have. I went into the room, computer was off, and yet I could hear music coming from these active speakers. So I thought, well, where's that coming from? I unplugged the computer. Well, actually, I turned the power off at the wall and unplugged it, and it was on a multi-socket extension. So basically, the entire computer, printer, scanner, speakers were all connected to a multi-plug, and then the whole thing was just a socket on the wall. Pulled the socket out of the wall, still music. So I said to my mother, very strange, we're still getting music from somewhere. So my sister came into the room. She said, "What's going on?" She could hear we were sort of saying. I said, "Well, there's music coming out of the speakers." We could hear it. So what I did is I took the satellite speakers, I disconnected everything. I took the subwoofer, placed it on the dining table, and the 2 satellite speakers disconnected from the subwoofer, placed them on the dining table. There's no power connected. It's just 3 component parts with their leads. Satellite speakers are still playing classical music. I couldn't tell you what piece of classical music it was. It wasn't random sound. It was music that had been composed and was obviously, it was quite pleasant. But as I say, I couldn't tell you what the piece of music actually was, unfortunately. But it was classical music. I think then at that point, then my father came into the room and I was saying, look, how is this possible? There are 2 disconnected speakers and they're playing music. Now, the only thing I couldn't do was disconnect the wire from the back of the satellite speakers, which were on like a headphone jack, because they were moulded into the back. So I did think perhaps my logical explanation for the music was the fact that the wire at the back of the speakers, because the 2 speakers were joined together with a Y-shaped piece of wire that then went into a single headphone socket, like headphone jack type connector. 3.5 mil, I think it's called. That perhaps was acting as an aerial for a very strong radio waves, and enough to actually power the speakers, to actually make sound come out of the speakers. We had other speakers in the house at the time. They weren't making any noise because we checked anything else with the speaker to see if it was indeed coming from, because it was quite hard to pinpoint where the sound was coming from initially. It was then we heard it come when you put your ear against the speaker. You could then hear clearly it was coming from these two satellite speakers. But all the other speakers in the house, there was nothing, no sound coming from them at all. When the sound eventually stopped, and I would say it was probably the process of me unwiring everything from the computer, putting it onto the dining table, probably took about 3 minutes. Then the sound just faded away 3 minutes after that. So we're talking about a 6-minute period. Unfortunately, this is before anyone had a camera phone or a phone that you could record. There was no easy way to record something quickly on hand. So that's a shame. I just have the witnesses of the rest of the members of my family. But I'd like to hear from anyone who's had a similar experience. I know amplifiers that are not receiving anything, like guitar amplifiers. Guitar amps can pick up taxis and radio frequencies, and it's going into the amp, and then the amp is putting it through to the speakers. But these were just speakers with wires. There was no amplifier connected. There was no power connected. But it would be interesting to know if anyone else has heard their speakers playing music even when they're not actually connected to anything. There's no transmitter locally. We were on the East Coast, so pretty much half of your land mass half of what surrounds you is out at sea, the other half being land. But there was no real local transmitters. Definitely no ones none of them were playing classical music. What I did do is when the music died, I quickly went to a radio to see if there was anything on the dial I could find that matched the sound or playing through these speakers, but I didn't have any success. The sound quality was very good, but it sounded almost like it was AM or perhaps shortwave radio. It definitely didn't sound as clear as FM, but it was definitely more like a radio station coming through the speakers, I would say, which is why I thought perhaps it was picking up a signal. I had those speakers for a good 10 years, and nothing like that ever happened again. So, yes, very strange. Can't really explain it. Have a couple of theories as to what happened, but yeah, just seems odd. When I lastly took the speakers apart, these satellite speakers apart, they were quite stiff paper cone drivers. Weren't very efficient speakers, so it would have to have been a lot of power to play music through them, and both of them were playing music. Both of them were playing music together. So yes, very strange. So if you've had anything like that happen to you, let me know in the comments. But just a strange story I thought I'd share.